beside you to guide you into time. Without love, destiny drives on, and space rules your life. Major Perry, our world lifts its eyes, and the bridge to eternity thrives on your stardust is waiting to take you a million light years.
Well, hello there, and welcome to the Second Life Book Club. It's a little bit cold out here. Today, we will talk about the biggest sci fi series in the world. Now, it also happens to be the longest running sci fi series in the world. And no, we're not talking about Star Trek or Doctor Who today. We're talking about Perry Roden, or as it is correctly pronounced, Perry Rodan, because it's a German operation. There are some Americans and English people involved as well, as we can see. Now, first, let's get out of the snow here. We are in some Perry Roden related world. Which one? I have no idea. I would have to refer to the Perry Roden wiki, Perrypedia, to find out. Um, let's go. Oh, I know who this guy is. This guy is Gookie. He's one of the fan favorites of Perry Roden. He must be a little cold. He has no shoes on. Here's a red door. Let's go through it and let's see where it leads. Now, Gookie, who you just saw, is not Rocket Raccoon from Guardians of the Galaxy. Gookie is a lot older. He's been around since the 60s when the series started. Now, Perry Roden has continuously been publishing novellas, so-called Heftromane in German. We'll find out what that is. Since September 1961, without any pause to today. They do it every single week. And 100 of those little novellas, they're about, maybe they're about like 100 pages or so, 63 pages, little bigger format. 100 of those constitute what they call a cycle, which is similar to a season in television. So you can imagine there's epic storytelling is guaranteed, as is your weekly dose of hard sci-fi, soft sci-fi, action, techno babble, whatnot. So here we are in another Second Life. Second Life. We're in second. Where are we? We're in Second Life. But you know what? You know what the what Perry Roden and Second Life have in common? It just occurred to me when somebody when I start talking about Second Life, people will ask, "What? Second Life is still around?" And now that I got back onto the Perry Roden crack and I talk people's ear off on the street at the butcher about Perry Roden, they say, "What, Perry Roden is still around?" Yes, it is. Anyway, so this might be I don't know what this world is. It might be the Russland before the Schwarze Verwehen set in. Now you have no idea what I'm talking about, so let's go through this door. And this is the challenge that I want to address with our panel. We have 4 guests today. I want to address the challenge of bringing new readers into the fold, into a universe that is so incredibly complex, that spans thousands of years of story, hundreds and hundreds of civilizations, alien civilizations, and uh, complex relationships between main characters, between side characters. But yeah, fear not, we will demystify this. Now, where are we right now? I don't know, this might be the KE Wohlfeil that is owned and operated by Kemur, who is a paddler. Now, how do I know all this? I don't know. I'm just looking at peripedia.com. Sorry, peripedia.de. Here's a weird worm. Here's a jumping thing. Some alien dude who is doing downward dog. Um, yeah, and Perry Roden has a wiki, peripedia.de. It's all fan run. And rumor has it that the managing editor of Perry Rodan, Klaus N. Frick, is rumored to use that Peripedia daily to figure out what is going on. Anyways, we'll talk about the logistical complexity as well. I don't actually know where the camera is. Sorry, here's the camera. I should speak to the camera. We will talk about this logistical complexity. How do you get, I don't know, 30 writers uh, to create a epic arc while again hitting all the buttons on a weekly basis? not writing the same thing, not being repetitive, coordinating between them, and again, keeping the lore intact so the fans don't revolt. So let's go through this. Oh, here we are. We are in Terrania. We are now in Terrania. Oops. And look at that. Karina Jurek just in front of me. Karina Jurek, a wonderful author from South Africa. Hello, Karina. We're already live. Please go in. I just want to show the folks here a little bit of the skyline of Terrania City. Terrania used to be Galacto City, the one that Peri Rodan built when he was a U.S. Air Force dude who came back from the moon with alien technology and said, I don't want the Cold War anymore. That was back in the 60s or the 70s. And if you're still listening to me, you probably wonder, why do I care about some German sci-fi series, all nice and good, but I don't speak German? Perry Roden is published in English. There's a reboot. It's called Perry Roden Neo. And we have two folks from that operation on the panel today as well. Perry Roden Neo is published in ebook format only. Here we go. This is the main big conference hall of Terrania City. The build is actually huge. And here is a nice little gallery that Ruby put together. Here are the two founders of Perry Roden, Clark Darlton and Carl Herbert Scheer. There's this weird alien again doing his downward dog thing. There's a lot of I don't want to say strange, but interesting avatars here. Here's a Le Tipard. I don't know what that is, but I read it in Peripedia. Robert Corvus, who is on the panel, and we'll introduce them in a second, told me that there are Americans who apparently buy the German ebook and then run it through DeepL, the translation engine, and then they know what's going on in the current series. So here we are. Welcome everybody, and let the camera pan over this magnificent gallery a little bit. There are figurines that you can buy on eBay for Perry Roden characters, Perry Roden alien species, and here's a bunch of cosplay pictures. Up there are the blueprints of spaceships. Folks can explore that as well. And we have a slideshow of Japanese covers. I'm actually going to show those later, also in high resolution while we're talking. But let's go first to introduce our panel. Now we have Susan Schwartz over here. Hello, Susan.
Hello, Drexler.
Now, what is your avatar? What does that avatar represent? Is that some alien race?
Yes, it's a feline race. It's Kartanin called, from another universe. And I am lion in astrology, so it's very clear that I will take a feline avatar.
Now it occurred to me, but we don't have the time, but it would be hilarious when you guys come back, then we'll do a quiz where you have to answer the backstory of that alien race. I'm going to ask stories, and you are not allowed to use the Perry Roden wiki. And then I'm going to test you. But we'll ask that later, because this to me is fascinating. When you're pressed for time and you have to write this, again, there's a little novella coming out every single week, and you guys are under the clock all the time. So I'm wondering, how do you actually find this? I'm assuming there's some sort of Slack channel or Discord or whatever, and you can ask someone, and then there's someone who is just a Wikipedia, Perry Roden Wikipedia maverick. But first, let's introduce the other folks. Robert Corvus I know who Robert Corvus is. He is a Munuam. The Munuams are awesome. They hate walking on ground. They have these tentacles, not as many as Robert has here in Second Life. I think they only have 9. But Robert, hi, how are you?
Oh, I'm fine. Thank you very much for having me.
Why did you choose this this Munuam?
Because to me, that's one of the coolest people that we introduced in the current cycle of Perry Roden. So that one which runs from episode 3100 all the way to 3199. So I really enjoyed reading about them, and all the more I enjoyed writing about them.
And you I have to tell everybody in the current writing team that indeed Perry Roden, I did not read Perry Roden for about 30 plus years, almost 40 years, if you can believe that. And I came back with the current cycle, and the Munuam are amazing, but what you guys pull off in terms of scope, epic storytelling, all these relevant themes, we'll get into them a little bit, with those chaos, the powers of chaos. It's such good writing. It's such good epic storytelling that it's on par with everything that is out there in international sci-fi. It's just amazing. The Munuam are cool, Robert, but the I don't know, the Yodoran are also cool, but the philosophy of the Munuam is cool. Let's not get too much into the weeds. Philip, hello, Philip. You're the youngest on the panel. How
Hello.
come that you're involved in Perry Roden? Shouldn't you play video games, Philip?
Well, I do. I used to translate video games as well.
Oh,
Yeah, no, my involvement basically it comes partly from being in the right place at the right time to a certain extent because when I used to live in Germany, but I worked there doing Japanese to English translation and project management. When I decided to leave and be a freelance translator, most of the work that I was getting was still in my my main language pair, Japanese to English. But I was very eager to do more work in this language pair, German to English. You know, I lived in Germany a long time. I speak fluent German, and it was just very exciting that J Novel Club, who I'd kind of got back in contact with and was involved, you know, translating various things for them. That I now do project management for them as well. That John here, sitting to my left, was kind of really pushing for J Novel Club to localize some of these German Heftromane.
and we
So
should be clear because you guys on my left, you guys are from Perry Roden Neo, which is the reboot that started. When did that start in German? I think 2011. And
2011, yeah.
right. And we'll talk also about the relationship of reboot, or why did the publisher think a reboot is necessary. I think it's very good, but I'm also completely, you know, it's fascinating how many Perry Roden products are out there. Sometimes I'm thinking like there can't be that many people. I mean, there's also books, there's the Silberbände, the hardcover books, etc. But anyway, Philip, yes, you're the translator, and you're having fun with a format that a lot of people think is only for old people.
Well, I mean, what I really like about it is it really is welcoming. It really is new. It feels very fresh. Obviously, at this point, it's about a decade old, but it feels like it's dealing with kind of modern social issues. It feels like it's written in this very modern style, and it is the beginning. I know that, like, when I lived in Germany, I used to see Perry Roden is something that I was aware of, even though I never read it, because I used to like going into bookstores and browsing, and sometimes there'd be like a whole wall of those, like,
Right.
Silberbänder,
The
right?
Silberbände, yeah, the biggies. Yeah.
Exactly. It really
A
makes an
whole wall.
impression, but it's so intimidating. I get you're also saying like you can just jump in wherever and the series catches you up. But knowing that there's so much there, it's like I like that I get to read Neo from the beginning and also really get to delve deep into it, you know, because when you're translating something, you're really like looking at every single word that is written. So
Right.
that fascinates me.
And our research staff, Monkey and Shala, please do put links in the local chat for folks of J Novel Club and the Perry Roden website. And then sometimes people just copy and paste and save it for later. Now, Jonathan J. Collis here next to you, a stingray floating on this projector thingy. You're the line manager over at J Novel Club, the publisher of Perry Roden Neo in English. How would you actually answer? Because now we're already in the weeds. Do you think it's easy to get into Perry Roden? Let's be honest here. I won't fire you if you say it's impossible.
No, it's not impossible. I think Neo goes a long way with how it's structured because, for example, the cycles in the Erstauflage, the main series, those can take up to 2 years to come out. They are these huge epics. Neo is structured a lot closer to a television series, and so the stories tend to be about 10 parts these days. At the beginning, they were more like 8 to 12. And the result of that is they're able to put on the cover, it's episode 1 of 10. And so you always know there's a jumping on point. You always know there's going to be an easy place not too far away to get to, or that you don't have to go too far back to catch up and get on either. So it's extremely new reader friendly.
I just wanted to say, for the record, and if people have questions, put them in the local chat. People have questions on YouTube. I will look over on YouTube, and also panelists, please do interrupt me rudely or interrupt your fellow panelists. This is one of the drawbacks of us here in Second Life. I was contemplating having like a tomato that you, or like a little like ray gun where you can shoot other people with frogs if you want to say, or if you want to say something, or you think Dragster is talking too long. It just occurred to me that people may think like, I want to say something and I can't raise my hand. Is that right, Susan? How many Perry Rodents do you have at home? How many Heftromane do you have at home?
I have all of them since 1992.
Wow, but not
Yes.
not the ones from
Then
the 60s.
it's yes, sure I have in some Sammlungen. My husband has it now, and I have read some of them, but not all. But in 1992, I joined the team, and so I get every week the Heftroman.
You're a staff writer, and how many staff writers are there in the Erstauflage, in the main series?
Actually, I think we
30?
are 10 or 11 at the same time, you mean, no?
Right, and there is like guest authors, and then sometimes
Yes,
there's
in summary, we are a lot small. Yeah.
this
In
is
summary, I don't
this is
know
amazing.
how many there were. I don't know.
This is amazing. Let's stay with Heftroman real quick. What is a Heftroman, Robert? How would you explain this to somebody who is not from Germany and grew up with either staring at Heftromane or collecting them like stamps? I put a slide up here. This is a bunch of Heftromane, the infamous, terrible military series. The Lanza is on there. Jerry Cotton is on there. Mad Drax is on there. So there's a lot of variety, and this has been around in Germany for a very long time. But Robert,
Yeah.
do you have? Can you explain what this is?
It's a very traditional format that I believe is only available in the German-speaking countries and nowhere else in the world. You can look at it if you open it and you look inside, you can look at it like as a small newspaper. So the print is like in a newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, it's a very narrow print, and traditionally it has 64 pages, which would be in a pocketbook. It would be 100 pages
That's
roundabout.
about 100. That's what I thought. Yeah.
Right, right. So it comes in a lot of varieties, as you told us. So romance is very big in the Heftroman, and science fiction and the other stuff, and Western also is very
Western,
big in there.
also doctors in all forms.
Right.
Let's not forget doctors in the
Yeah.
mountains, doctors in the countryside, urban doctors.
Absolutely. So they fall into the romance category, though. So it's not really about medicine. You don't learn anything about medicine in these novels, I believe.
Oh, see
They
that's.
are,
Oh, I
it's
see.
more like this is the doctor that women trust, and so you can really trust him and fall in love with him and so on. So that's the traditional thing in there. So it has been extremely popular in the 1980s in Germany. So it's been around for some decades then already. but in the 1980s it was extremely popular.
Hmm.
And even today, it's a huge thing. So Perry Rhodan alone, this Erstauflage, we would sell around about 60,000 copies a week. So
That's amazing. That's
that-
amazing in a
that's pretty
world where
huge.
nobody reads and just hangs out with Philip Rubin playing video games. Sorry, Philip. I apologize.
the-
I'm such an old fart.
By the way, Perry Rhodan Neo is a Taschenheft. That's something that is more close to really a pocket book. So it's a very, very, very soft cover pocket book. But it will be published every 2 weeks here in Germany.
Mm.
And it would be 1.5 of the volume of a Heftroman. So that
I
would be
just
around about 150 pages.
I just put up a slide here. If the camera could zoom in, it on the left is Andreas Eschbach, who's a big German sci-fi writer. His big novel Perry Rhodan, Das größte Abenteuer, which is basically like a pre-story of Perry Rhodan's childhood. Then in the middle is a Heftroman, and on the right is Perry Rhodan Neo. As Robert just pointed out, this is issued bi-weekly, and
Right.
it's like a little pocket book. And now you see this slide here from the top view. Now I'm going to put the side view up, and you can see how thin these Heftromane are compared to this gigantic novel here by Andreas Eschbach. And then on the right, the little pocket book, which is about 140 pages. So this
Yeah.
is the format.
And from this,
Go
you
ahead.
can already tell that there's no format that would not be recognized by Perry Rhodan, So the main format definitely is the Heftroman in the middle, but Perry Rhodan was about the first who really jumped into the ebook market as well. Because what we see in these Heftromane is serious storytelling, so
Mhm.
continuous stories, long running, and every episode is, compared to pocket books or hardcover books, is quite short. So that's what we see in the ebook market as well. So they are doing extremely well in Germany in the ebook market, and as far as I understand, that's also the format that they use in the US for Perry Rhodan Neo. By the way, Perry Rhodan Neo is, strictly speaking, it's not a remake, it's not reboot, because it doesn't replace the original series. It's strictly speaking, it's a remake.
Mhm.
So what they do is they use motives and characters and everything from technology and so on from the main series as an imagination, or an inspiration. An inspiration would be the correct term. So they use it as an inspiration, and
I thought it
basically
was
they,
really retelling. That's what I thought. It was retelling everything from
yeah, but
top
yeah,
to bottom.
it does more or less. They did in the beginning, but they didn't replace it. If it would be a reboot, you would just say we do away with the original series and then we
Mhm.
start completely over. But the
Mhm.
original series and this Neo stuff, they run in parallel. So that's basically a remake. And they use these elements from the original story, like you would go into a quarry and break out nice stones, and then you look at them and you can
Mhm.
take them to incorporate them in the new story, new storylines. And that's what they do all the time. So they don't take everything, but they ask themselves the question, if we would have known about the complexity of this Perry Rhodan universe in the beginning in 1961, how would we have told it?
Mm.
So if we would
Quite
have
a,
known from the beginning which characters would appear later on, which forces of nature we would discover, which secrets we would discover, how would we have prepared it from the beginning?
Susan,
And
you
so
wanted to
that,
jump in?
yes, I
Let's
wanted, I wanted to say it's quite a bit of what if stories.
Mhm.
It's very similar and but not the same. It's
Mhm.
new told with new adventures and some new characters and so on.
And like Jonathan was saying, it also, I think Philip was saying, it makes it a little easier to jump in because I mean it's not as intimidating because the numbers are not in the 3000s maybe.
Mhm.
Here I'm putting up a slide of the Perry Rhodan Neo English edition here, these ebooks. The covers are awesome, and these are the Japanese covers, Jonathan, right?
Yep.
It's the same. And where are the Japanese? Are they further ahead?
No, they actually stopped putting out Neo at number 24, so the end of the
What?
third Staffel. They've been putting
Why?
out. I don't know. They still put out the Erstauflage, and they've put out something like 650 of the Erstauflage. I'm not sure if that's continuous or if they jump around quite a bit. But we're actually going past the Japanese edition next year, and we have arranged it so that the original artist for the Japanese edition of Neo is doing new art for us.
This is
So
interesting. I actually have a collage here of the Japanese edition. Again, Erstauflage is the main series, and then Neo is the remake. This is a bunch of covers from the Erstauflage, the Japanese Erstauflage. If you want to take a wild guess, why do you think Erstauflage is still going and Neo is not, Jonathan or Philip, in Japan?
I have no idea. I would guess probably just the established fan base.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Probably like there's an established fan base who wants that one version, but maybe a new version started and they just weren't so keen on it.
Is it difficult? I mean, I know I keep sort of like joking about people play video games, people don't read anymore, but the fact of the matter is that there is a lot of competition for your eyeballs in entertainment and popular culture. Let's start with Susan. Why do you think Perry Rhodan is still around while a lot of other entities are not in the written format? What is the appealing thing? Actually, let me rephrase it. What's the appealing thing to you, Susan? Let's just do it like this. What does Perry
Me,
Rhodan mean to you?
to
What does it
me,
mean to you?
I earn my money with it.
I knew that was coming. It's totally annoying to get the notes back from my draft, which is more red than black, like I'm in third grade. Probably not. Are you getting a lot of notes back when you hand something in? Oops, did I lose the audio?
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, yeah. What was the question?
The question was about notes. I have a million questions, but
Yes.
let's do one at a
Ah,
time. What does Perry
notes.
Rhodan mean other than it provides you with a roof over your head? Um,
What
what
is
kind of connection? What's the emotional connection that you have?
what I have? Well, it's the same for everybody who reads it, not only to write. What is Perry Rhodan? It's a never-ending story at all. Yeah,
Ah, yes.
about exploring undiscovered countries, equality, democracy, humanity, loyalty, friendship, of course. It's very, very important. And last not least, action, adventure, and sense of wonder. What do you want?
Mm-hmm. Actually, I thought about when I thought about what does Perry Rhodan mean to me, or how would I describe Perry Rhodan to someone, in one or two sentences, I would describe it as basically Michael Ende's The Never-Ending Story, which is actually never ending, as if he was still writing
Yeah.
it, plus a good dose of MacGyver thrown in there. People know who in the audience knows who MacGyver is or was?
I think everybody, because
Arthur
it's
says,
there's a
"Woo."
reboot now, no?
I'm not. No, no reboots. Remakes of Perry Rhodan, yes, but reboots of MacGyver, no. Robert, how
Yeah.
would you describe Perry Rhodan, and would it be different from what Perry Rhodan means to you? I mean, if somebody like I meet you somewhere and said, "What is this Perry Rhodan thing about?"
To me, at the core, Perry Rhodan is a future history. So it's a future history of mankind searching for its place between the stars in a universe vibrant of life. So
Mm.
that's at the core of it, and that seems to me, it seems to be the overwhelming topic of it. So it's not so much the story of an individual person or an individual hero or a group of heroes. It's not like in Star Trek you always follow that same spaceship and the same crew around, but it's really about the vastness of the universe, the vastness of the Milky Way galaxy and neighboring galaxies as well, and how humanity manages to find its place among it. Of course, there's conflict and there's struggles and so on, but in the end, it's a very, very positive vision of the future. So, where mankind really manages to cope with all the problems and all the struggles, and in the end, finds new friends amongst the stars. And that's basically also a topic that's so common in Perry Rhodan that it's almost you can joke about it. That at the beginning of such a cycle, usually you see a very fearsome people invading the Milky Way and attacking the solar system and so on. And it's all very gruesome. And then fast forward 2 years, and then we will be friends with them.
Mm,
It's very, very often a topic that we find out there is some kind of
right.
misunderstanding that we can work out. So it's not like bombing everybody back to the Stone Age, but really work on your differences and then make sure that you can find common ground and coexist in the universe.
I wrote this down here as well. This is well put. I mean, what is really fascinating, I mean, and you can argue that this is true for a lot of science fiction and Star Trek as well, as that these big themes of the multicultural, multi-species universe. How do you get along, and how do you resolve conflict? But Perry Rhodan does it in such a nuanced way, in this, while churning out content. God, I hate that word. uh the nuance and the depth is still there, and those deeply philosophical questions. What does life mean in a universe populated by people who look completely different, who have completely different, sometimes very strange cultural norms? Matter of fact, if the camera can zoom, in front of me there is a sphere with a little plate of ice, with a very, very strange creature ice skating around on it in a figure eight. This is an out. Robert earlier said that the Munuam are the most fascinating species in the current cycle. I think the out, I don't know if there's many outs, and I don't want to spoil anything. Maybe there's only one out. Maybe he's already dead. Who knows? But he is ice skating around here, and he has a guy, a Vasia, who is basically looking at him and translating what the out means. And maybe the out is sort of a man-machine interface. Maybe he controls galaxies or universes, or he calls the shots all over the known dimension or whatnot. I mean, the scale is just insane. And the current cycle, and my friends from Perry Road Neo English, please don't despair. I'll get over to you in just a second. the the theme of the current cycle is something that is also, I don't want to call it a trope in sci-fi, but it's the theme of the powers of chaos versus the powers of the order. But it's told in a nuanced way. And again, let me remind folks, this is over the course of 100 of these Heftromane. That's the arc. 100 of them were speeding towards 3,200, so towards the closure of this current cycle. And so there is room for complexity and nuance, and this whole good versus evil, chaos versus order, like I said, is told in a nuanced way, but it also reflects, like Perry Rhodan always did. And I'm going to throw it over to Jonathan. As entertainment and popular culture often does, or good popular culture, anyways, reflect what's going on in the real world. Jonathan, how would you answer the question if I would ask you, does Perry Rhodan Neo reflect what's going on in the quote unquote real world?
I'd say so. Um, again, we're working on stories that were told 10 years ago, but things that have come up
Exactly.
even
That's why I'm asking you,
even
because it
even
could be a
within
challenge. Yeah.
it could be a challenge, but at the same time, we're looking at issues like climate change is a big aspect of the first arc. General Baijun, who's a major character in the early parts of both editions of the series, he talks about being half Uyghur and what that meant in China. That felt very relevant at times. We're talking about corporatization. There's a lot that feels surprisingly and almost uncomfortably relevant in the prescience
Mhm. Yeah.
with how it plays out
That's
and how it's written about. And I think
Mm.
some of that comes from the fact that it is being a lot of the early aspects of the series are sort of writing about America from an outsider perspective,
Mm.
and that gives it sort of a look and a vibe to it that domestic American sci-fi probably would not have handled in the same way.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. Philip, yeah, go ahead. Add
Just
to
if it's
that.
okay to jump in, one of my
Please.
favorite characters in the first arc was John Marshall, and even though
Right, he was
argue
yes, he was the first mutant.
right, exactly, and
Oh,
even
we
though
gotta
he's
tell people what mutants are. People go like, "What are you talking about?" Well, you gotta go out to the store and buy this shit. So sorry. Go ahead, Philip.
But I love the fact. I think John's hit the nail on the head. He is presented, even though he is American, he's presented as this kind of outsider character in his world who used to be like a corporate banker or like he basically he could have taken a career that made him very very rich, but instead he decided to start an orphanage. And you see this very like broken vision of like future America, which arguably is how America always is, but it's kind of the path that it continues to go down where society is broken down, people are not being taken care of, environmental issues are not taken seriously. And it really delves into these in a very hard hitting way that I was quite surprised by, but pleasantly surprised by, because I think a lot of American fiction these days, even sci-fi that deals with social issues, it's not willing to be this hard hitting, to kind of to delve into these issues in such a raw way and really look at kind of the people affected by them. And kind of dramatize that. I just thought that was fascinating. It was just something that I didn't expect and was just so blown away by.
Right, because people may, and I don't know how this, the hierarchy is among sci-fi writers. I can imagine that there's a certain sort of snobbery, probably like in any type of business. Like, oh, we do we do like high quality sci-fi, and you guys do like this pulp sci-fi they sell at the train station. Jay, you were just at the Buchmesse. I wonder what Buchmesse, a big the book fair in Frankfurt, I believe. I don't know what people say about Perry Roden. This is interesting what Philip says, because I agree 100%. There is a depth of complexity and a willingness to address current issues in the realm of this universe that people may not think is actually happening while they're sort of reading, I don't know, the big the big sci-fi folks. Some of them we had here, award-winning folks, or whatever. What does the book world think about Perry Roden, Jay Collis,
I mean,
over at the book fair? Were you even allowed in with your Perry Roden T-shirt?
I don't have a Perry Roden T-shirt. I had to dress formally for meetings. I think Hakovis probably can talk a bit more to that, because we were both at the spin-off Sci-Fi Con. I mean, Perry Roden is such an embedded part of German. I kind of hate the phrase low culture,
Mm-hmm.
but it's such a cornerstone of it.
Trivialliteratur
It's
is a German term
yeah.
which I find incredibly classist and offensive, but let's just throw it out there. Maybe somebody could look at Wikipedia Trivialliteratur and just put it in, so if people
Yeah,
are
I mean,
actually
I think it's what's called the e-culture
Mhm.
versus whatever else, in terms of government classifications
That's
and
right.
whatnot.
It's in music. It's the same
Um,
thing. There's
yeah,
E-Musik and U-Musik still in Germany.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's very much in the e-music kind of phase. It's pop culture. It's popular entertainment. But even if people don't read Perry Roden, they know what it is. It's when we first announced it, we called it's the literary version of putting out Doctor Who, in
Mm.
terms of just something with that much of an establishment, that much of a
That's it.
cornerstone.
That is good. Yeah.
Of course, the ideas of relevance are coming back into the main series as well. I mean, Hekovos can tell you he's writing the first story of the new Cyclus, And
The Zyklus is again every 100, and 3,200 comes out in mid-December, I guess. So the first one
16th,
is
right?
yeah,
Right.
15th or
So
16th. Yeah, Robert, go ahead.
it's the 16th of December. Yeah. Yeah, it's a very strange thing with the reception of Perry Rhodan by the literary world, because on the one hand, strictly just by the format that it has, it's Heftroman is really looked down upon. So that's really something you read and throw away afterwards, basically. But on the other hand, Perry Rhodan has been around for such a long time that really makes an impression to everybody. And therefore it's seen as a cultural phenomenon as well. So we have a very prestigious TV station. It's called Arte. It's in collaboration between Germany and France, and they did a documentary on Perry Rhodan. We have the most prestigious newspaper in Germany, the Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung. They bring features on Perry Rhodan when there is something to report, like when episode number 3000 came out. So it's something that you simply cannot ignore. And there are even outstanding figures in German cultural and even political life that out themselves as Perry Rhodan fans.
Mhm.
So it's really deeply embedded in the German culture. And you understand this when you think about the sheer size of it, especially in the science fiction genre. So about 3/4 of all the science fiction production in terms of sold copies in Germany, about 3/4 is Perry Rhodan. And everything else in science fiction is the last remaining quarter.
Wow,
And
that's
and there's
amazing.
and there's even an overlap. So even those who really write highbrow science fiction in Germany, oftentimes they did what you already touched upon, guest Heftromane. So as a guest, like you would have a guest appearance in a TV series, you would have famous authors, at least for Germany, famous authors, who would come in and do one or two novels for Heftroman-sized novels for Perry Rhodan. So there's strictly an overlap. So I also came from or still am active in the open book market with other novels that are standalone, that are not connected to any franchise. But I also do Perry Rhodan, right?
Mhm.
So it's really, really entangled in the German science fiction genre. And also that draws some criticism as well, because some people, some publishers, editors, they would say if it wouldn't be for Perry Rhodan, we would have a much more diverse and lively science fiction scene in Germany.
Wow, now
But,
that is amazing to me. So
but
they're blaming the success of Perry Rhodan. Wow, that's
yeah,
interesting.
they absolutely do.
The,
So
the
there
suc-
was,
because there is something that is popular over a long period of time,
but
it's
there,
stifling innovation.
it's kind of, it makes sense in a way. So I don't believe it's entirely true. But if you think about, there's one episode every week, then
Mhm.
every second week there's an episode of Perry Rhodan Neo, and then there are other side products to Perry Rhodan. So if you're a science fiction fan and you're into reading Perry Rhodan, that takes up a lot of your reading time. A lot, really a lot.
You're telling me I was over the summer I wanted to read Thomas Pynchon, high
Right,
literature, and what did I
right.
do? Read Perry Rhodan from one parallel to the current one. Anyways,
Yeah, good choice.
poor
Yeah,
Thomas Pynchon.
poor Thomas Pynchon, yeah. But he could write a guest novel, and so then, yeah. But anyway, so
Ooh, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But really, there's some point of truth in it. But on the other hand, Perry Rhodan, and now we come back to this money thing, right? Perry Rhodan really funds a lot of authors, either because they get their main income from Perry Rhodan, or they get a strong side income from Perry Rhodan. And the same is true for artists. So all of these
Oh, yes,
cover art that you
covers.
presented, that's
Oh, I have
all
more.
That's all originally drawn for Perry Rhodan. So there's no bought from some database of graphics or something. They get descriptions from us, the artists, what we would like to see on the cover. It doesn't always work out, but in the end, bottom line, they have to draw every cover specifically for that special episode. And that's paid, and it's paid very well. We are also connected. We have an entry point for fan writers as well. We have a short story series. It's called Stellaris, and everybody can apply to write a short story for Stellaris. And he's paid the same way as an amount per page as we are, as we, the professional writers, are. It's edited and everything, and then it's published within every 8th issue of the main series. So you get the whole printout of that. So you get a huge audience for your short story if you write for Perry Rhodan. And
Robert,
of course,
sorry, I just wanted to briefly, while you're talking, we have a lot of, I don't want to cut you off. You can continue and other people can jump in at any time. While you're talking, I'm going to throw up some covers from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and the current cycle here on the board behind us. Please continue.
right. So what I wanted to say is we have really a pathway, or several pathways, into writing for Perry Rhodan. So if you are a professional in some completely unrelated field and you just have a couple of hours to write, and then you want to do a short story, you can get published in Perry Rhodan. If you're a professional writer, you can write a guest novel into Perry Rhodan. If you're into another format, like you like to tell longer story arcs, then it is possible in a heft roman. We always have specials, like that hardcover that you showed. That's an extreme example, but we have others as well. If you are a video game producer, so we can pull everybody who's creative in one way or another. If you do technical drawings, for example, you're always welcome. So we have technical drawings in every 4 weeks, I believe, in Perry Rhodan.
I have a whole bunch of those as well. Let me just interrupt here real quick. What I just showed on the board are from the 60s and 70s. These were all drawn by Johnny Brook, who is also here in the gallery in the room. If folks want to walk around later. The ones that I'm showing now are from the 80s when I started reading in 1983, and I actually have the one that I started reading. This is not the one, the Trümmerreiter. That's an amazing cover. The covers from the 80s are amazing. The ones before there too, but
And there's some background story for the covers as well. So that artist Johnny Brook that you mentioned, he painted all the covers until his death, and he was a passionate hunter. So he really was passionate for hunting, and that's why you can see on a lot of these covers, you can see aliens with some kind of animal features in there as well, because he knew everything about animals as being a hunter. And of course, this is not a one-way street. So if you see, this is a good example, that Centaur there, right?
yeah, I'm gonna put that one back up.
Yeah,
This is
yeah,
the top city, and here's the Centaur, the letzten Marks,
yeah. Right,
1983.
right. And that's not a one-way street. So the stories inspire the artwork, but the artwork also inspires the stories, right? So it goes both ways. And that's why through this hobby of, or this passion of Johnny Brook, this shaped a lot of the aliens that we found in Perry Rhodan then.
So what is happening in your head? By the way, can somebody explain to me the term? We have so much more stuff here, because actually also a guy just showed up in the audience and his name is Farbaut der im Glanz. Can the camera please go on to Farbaut der im Glanz? He's standing there, he's facing us, he's very antsy because I hired him to read a bunch of excerpts from Neo in English, and then from one of your stories, Robert, and one of yours, Susan. Farbaut der im Glanz is one of the main characters of the current Chaotarchenzyklus, and he is an amazing character. Now he does not look exactly like this, even in my head, because he is naked except for like a towel around his nether regions, and he does not have 3 arms. But our character designer here in Second Life, he got the wrong memo, so he made him 3 arms. But I think he looks, maybe he's Farbout's cousin. I don't know. So Farbout will read a little bit. But before he does that, what you were talking about here, Robert, is of course something that is so amazing about reading, and that two-way street of imagining something, and everybody imagines something different. And what I actually love about the Perry Rhodan marketing, they use the term Kopfkino all the time. Philip, you're the translator. How would you what is Kopfkino? I don't even know if there's a word in English, but just describe it, what it means. So the Perry Rhodan marketing materials that I received, they play around with this Kopfkino term, and it's perfect. To me, it's perfect marketing.
Yeah.
What does Kopfkino mean, Philip?
Yeah, so literally it's head cinema. It's like the movie in your mind, it's the way that writing, as I understand it. I'm so sorry. One moment.
No worries. Da dee da 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 dee da da. Oh, we need to have something like, the owl is dancing here in front while Philip is
Excellent.
clearing his throat. The
Sorry.
owl is dancing. Yes.
I'm so sorry. It's the way that writing can make you picture the story that's being told. Make it come alive in your head. Would be my understanding.
Mhm.
Perfect.
That's absolutely perfect. Anything to add, Jonathan? How would you explain that Kopfkino?
Pretty much the same way as Phil. The way that you hear the voices in your head, the way that you visualize and see
The good voices, not the ones that tell me to hit my neighbor with a
Set things
shovel.
on fire.
I mean, I don't know. Depends on your neighbor, but
Okay, Farbout der im Glanz, the character of the Chaotachenzyklus, a very erratic, possibly manic depressive little bit, a fascinating character who is in service of the chaos, the powers of chaos. And you know what? The powers of chaos, I don't know. I'm reading the Chaotachenzyklus right now. They have a lot. They have good sales pitch. And as we established earlier, it is quite fascinating, all the themes that are woven in there. Actually, before Farbout, I'm sorry, you can start reading in just a second. But what I told Susan, what I love is when you writers put in not only the big themes of the climate catastrophe, war, diplomacy, international diplomacy, universal diplomacy in the universe, etc., but also sort of like little things. Leo Lukács is a writer for the current series, and I forgot which one it was, but he was basically poking not only gentle fun at the phenomenon of fake news and social media addiction. And Susan, you wrote in one of your stories about a guy who goes to work every day on
Yes.
foot, I believe, and he has all these people in these hoverboards that are going way too fast on the sidewalk. And I thought, like, oh my God, Susan probably is really kind of annoyed by these e-scooters that are around all the time, and people go so fast on them. Is that true? Was that
Yeah, that's
inspiring
true.
you?
Yes. I think it was to the time that I was in Munich for a date and went through the Marienplatz. Yeah.
Yeah, the
And
main.
there were the bicycles and e-scooters and so on, and they all cried, "Out of way, out of way, I'm coming here." So I had no place to stay, to go, nothing. Just to search on my way, and that was very nerving. And so I wrote it down in this scene.
Awesome. This is the fun of being a writer. You also use the word triggered in one of your stories.
Yeah.
I think Atlan, one of the main character, one of the biggest, most important characters in the Perry Rhodan series, Atlan And now I forgot the context, but Atlan was triggered by something. I found that was hilarious. Anyways, Farbout, yes, I know you want to read. Farbout is very, very, I don't know if he's emotionally stable, but I do want to show the camera. Please go to the board again. This is the current cycle of the current series, the Kaotachen cycle. And again, the covers are, yeah, what brought me in as a 13-year-old. And my parents were saying, well, at least you're not reading the Lanza. That's good. Here is one by Susan Schwartz, Die Meute Jochzor. Look at this avatar on that cover. Looks like Robert will get a call from the lawyers.
It's the first introducing of the Munuam. Yeah,
Right, you introduced it. Okay, so
yeah,
then
yeah.
let
I
me
had the
ask you.
other.
So let me ask you this then. You get from the managing editor, you get the order, like this is your assignment. Come up with this alien species. How detailed is that?
The cover is
No. How detailed is your assignment when you were the first one to introduce? I guess the
yeah,
question is,
that's exciting. I like it. It's not the first time, and just like Robert, I like the Moonarm very, very. They are fascinating because they don't want to walk over the floor, and yeah, all their
but Susan,
culture.
my question is, do you get from the team or from the assignment editor or for the managing editor, do you get let's say character traits? For example, the
Yes,
Moonram
sure, for sure. Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
known for, I mean, they are hunters also. I mean, they hunt.
Yeah.
This is their life's purpose. And there's a real sort of a midlife crisis with one of the leaders.
Yeah,
So
you get a sheet about the people you have to describe with their outfit, how they are, how their culture is structured, and so on. But there is many room to describe on your own. If you are in it. You have the first scene with them. You have to see them before you, just like Kopfkino. We had
you have
it
to see
before.
him in your head. Yeah.
Yeah, and when you then start to write, it goes for it. Yeah, you write and write, and the universe of this culture goes wider and wider, and you have some points that you must describe, you have to describe, and the rest is yours. So I will take the sheet and make it with more issue and give it to the other authors.
So that's fascinating. So you get a broad outline of some character traits, maybe, I don't know, maybe they're like a little egotistical, let's say, or they're more sort of community oriented, or they're manic depressive or
Yeah.
whatnot. And then you flesh it out. And then once you created that from that little fetus, you created that the child or the human being, then the others have to refer back to you, right? And if then
Yeah.
if they make a mistake, then you're gonna email them or Slack channel and whatever, say, hey, wait a minute, this is not within the the character traits of my people there.
No, that's not a problem because we speak about it, and we do it in the Dropbox so everybody can read about it if he needs it, or looks at the Peripedia, yeah, and that's not so difficult.
Wait a minute, if you're writing something, oh my God, Faubart is getting really antsy. He wants to read something. Faubart, relax. Okay, what happens though? Last question before Faubart reads. What happens though if because the turnaround is so fast and you're creating a new species, and some other people are writing this in parallel. Is it theoretically possible a conflict in the sense that you are fleshing this out while somebody else is already writing and refers to you and then creates a conflict in the character traits of that species?
Yeah, sure, that's possible. But we talk about it.
You have to
Yeah,
communicate. Mhm.
yeah, we have to communicate, and then it's no problem.
Mhm.
Yeah, so maybe it's a very good idea. So I say, okay, I give you room for it, and I will take it.
Ah,
The
Elfbiter
same.
says, what aliens should only have one culture? Well, that's a good point, Elfbiter. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Only the
these
communist aliens.
yeah
Right.
these aliens, these Munam, live on the cow Porter Fenerick.
Mhm.
So they have only one culture. We show they live on not on their own world. They have eine Aufgabe, eine
We have a task.
An assignment, yeah, or task,
ja.
yeah.
Yeah, genau. Task assignment. They have a assignment, and so they have their culture around this assignment.
Mhm.
And some live there for every time on the cow porter. They have some other things to do, and so on, but we don't show it all. We don't have the time. We have just 100 issues for a cyclus, so we don't have the time to show it all. It's just an example. And
Yeah, but then you
Uh,
have time to flesh it out over time. I want to bring it to Philip real quick because Philip's saying something interesting. He's saying he's translating something with the Pharaoh culture. This is a race that was coming in very early on in the 60s already. Philip, tell us that story. How is that? Yeah, go ahead.
So the portion of the series that we've been working on, the kind of current season of it, a lot of it's focused on the Vega system and the Theran people who live there. And the one that I'm translating right now is set on the 10th planet around the Vega system, which mysteriously disappeared, and the main characters basically have gone back in time, and they're at this point in time just before it disappears, and they're kind of exploring, well, what are the reasons for that? What's going on there? And there's just different cultures essentially. They've found on this planet this sort of secluded settlement that finds themselves at war with the orthodoxy of the Theran people, the Thought, who's like their leader, and are kind of revolting against him. It's this kind of because there are so many stories, I feel like it surprisingly does have time to explore different sides of these things. We've been told there are different Theran tribes. Two of the main Theran characters that we've been
Oh,
introduced
I
to
think
so
so
far
too.
that
That's
went
why
with
I'm
the party.
surprising. I agree because what Susan said was surprising me. But I think Susan was referring to when when you're creating something new and then you're very fast
Right.
writing the next one. But over time, over the
Exactly.
course of time, you have enormous abilities within the series to flesh out things to enormous detail. That's what
Mm.
I find so fascinating about Perry Road. But Philip, is that a challenge for you? Like when you're writing this, and we're gonna read some Neo actually from the very last one. I don't know if it's number 10 or number 9, but are you is that difficult for you then? I mean, where do you refer to when you go like, okay, I don't get that cultural nuance. I gotta ask someone.
Okay. Well, I
Who do
mean,
you ask?
the short answer is Peripedia.
Mhm.
Um,
Without Peripedia, the whole thing is
yeah.
collapsing like a house of
Well,
cards.
I mean, I think so to a certain extent, it comes back to what Robert said earlier, which is the way that Neo is written. It feels like things are maybe foreshadowed and set up earlier or kind of quite cleanly. It's like everything feels like it's quite coherent because it's written with this knowledge of which things are going to be important later on. And I feel like with the Theran people in particular, with the Vega system, there's been a lot of kind of gradual setup and exposing the characters to kind of these different worlds, these different people. It never feels like it's introducing too much at once, which is which is great. You know, as a translator, it never feels like it's inscrutable and strange. You know.
I think it might be a little easier for you with the Chaotachenzyklus right now in Erstauflage. I mean, again, I have my hat is off to the writers to find a balance between satisfying the the hardcore fans with the lore and the whole stuff that you drag with you, the history, and then keep it fresh and keep it moving forward. I'm gonna throw it to Fabaut there im Glanz. I hope he's ready because he's gonna read from Perry Rhodan Neo in English, and this is, as a matter of fact, a scene where Perry Rhodan and Reginald Bull are going to a Pharaon planet with, I think, a bona fide Pharaonian or Pharaon member of the crew in this spaceship. Is that right, Fabaut? Okay, Fabaut is not responding because Fabaut can only read. Fabaut, take it away. Perry Rhodan Neo. Here it comes. I was just informed that Farbout was not speaking. He, like I said, he's emotionally a little fragile. Also, his voice he's trying to like imitate me with his voice. So let's start that over. Here's Perry Rhodan Neo, number 10.
Perry Rhodan, the Vega System, September 13th, 2036. The Tosoma remained behind the two humans and the Pharaon man. The ship was a gigantic steel sphere with a diameter of around 800 meters, a technological marvel that, until only a few weeks ago, had been beyond anyone's wildest dreams. And now, the Tosoma was the flagship of humanity and, at least for the moment, the only ship on Earth that was capable of traveling the inconceivable distances between the stars. Perry Rhodan concentrated fully on the here and now. The air in the narrow cabin of the Pharaon ship was stuffy, underlaid with a whiff of cool metal and a dry note that the astronauts of Vega had left behind. It reminded him of the confinement in the cabin of the Stardust, which had taken him and his companions to the moon. To his left was Reginald Bull, Rhodan's best friend. They had appointed him flight board engineer. The red-stubbled man noticed Rhodan's inquisitive look. He had narrowed his eyes and was trying to decipher the rows of Pharaon letters whizzing past on the screens of the diagnostic displays. Chuktor, an astronaut from the Vega system, was on his right-hand side. Like most Pharaons, he was smaller and more compact than a human, his body being adapted to the considerably higher gravity on his home planet. His skin was blue, his hair the color of copper, his eyes were set in deep sockets and protected by a protruding brow that made them difficult to discern. "Are we on the right course?" Rhodan asked Chuktor. Chuktor retrieved a few data sets and enlarged sections of the image on his display. "Yes," the Pharaon astronaut answered. "We're above the custodian of hell. If we keep to the same vector, we will enter the atmosphere above the nest of the scavenging serpents." "That's something pleasant to look forward to," Bull roared. "Hopefully we won't be attacked by one." "All systems ready to go?" Rhodan asked, ignoring his friend's comment. Bull didn't lift a finger to operate the touch screens in front of him. "As ready as we'll ever be." He sounded almost insulted. Since encountering the Archonids on Earth's moon, Bull had spent every minute playing around with extraterrestrial technology. Whether from the Archonids, the Fontan, the Topsidians, or the Pharaons, if there was such a thing as an expert in extraterrestrial technology, it was Reginald Bull. "Good," Rhodan answered. "I'll start the reactor." The humming of the reactor became louder as the five-dimensional shield emerged. Chuktor began mumbling something. The translator in Rhodan's suit did not interpret the words, but it sounded like a prayer of some sort. Bull said out loud, "Are you seeing your first ghosts, Chuktor?" It was an inexcusably irreverent remark, the kind of comment that only Reg would make, and one that only a friend could get away with. "None that looks anywhere near as terrible as you do, red-haired human," Chuktor responded in the same sardonic tone. Bull laughed out loud. "Well then, everything's fine and dandy?" "You said it," Chuktor agreed. Rhodan listened to them, astonished. A gruff camaraderie had quickly developed between Bull and Chuktor. The human and Pharaon seemed to see each other as equals, while Chukter still treated Roden with a kind of awe. Before setting off on this mission, Chukter had voiced a number of warnings. No vehicle, either manned or unmanned, had ever managed to descend into the lower layers of Gol's atmosphere and come back again. According to the physical data, there was no lack of scientific explanations for this failure. However, Chukter, who was otherwise a very rational astronaut, did not hold with rational explanations in this case. There was only one explanation to his mind: the ghosts of Gol. Bad humans went to hell after death, or some equivalent that their respective religion dictated. The souls of bad pharaohs were locked up on Gol. Chukter believed this without the slightest doubt. That was remarkable to Roden, considering how culturally splintered the inhabitants of Vega were in his experience. It was superstition, anachronistic, but explainable.
Wow, Fabaut, that's really good reading. Thank you, pal. I think he might have a future in the ebook business if he wouldn't be so chaotically inclined. We're going to do some readings from Robert and Susan, but Robert, can you very briefly summarize the current cycle? What is sort of the main, what is going on here? Maybe, you can refer to Fabaut as one of the main characters, but I was like I was alluding to, it's the big battle again between chaos and order, but also these chaos powers have the principle of serendipity. They're not searching, they're finding. Anyways, give us a quick pitch of what is happening in the current cycle.
Let me try. So
I'm going to count 10, 12 seconds. That's what they do in Silicon Valley. Has to be an elevator pitch. You get maybe 15.
Okay. So these forces of chaos, they employ different vehicles or task forces that they send through the universes. So there's a multiverse, so they have multiple universes that they send their forces to. Some are bound to fight or to gain new territories or so on. But there's also some that are only to explore. And one of these explorers is the cow porter. That's called, the vehicle is called. It's kilometers long and on the inside even bigger than outside. So it incorporates whole worlds.
There's entire worlds. It reminded me of Philip Jose Farmer. Sorry to interrupt. It's like worlds of they're like shapes, and they're stacked on top of each other and in weird angles, and they don't see each other. It's almost what we're doing here on the Second Life Book Club. There's a lot of worlds, but they're contained in skyboxes that you can't see them. And the entire civilizations live inside these worlds, and they're all contained in that cow porter called Feneric. And that Feneric travels around. Sorry, Robert. Now, I'm in the interest of time, I'm going to step on you here a little bit. Now, the cow porter travels around. He travels through the Milchstraße. But what is the problem with the cow porter? I mean, why can't it just travel? Where's the conflict?
The point is, the cow porter, he would seed things into chaoverses, which is the chaotic version of universes. And then he would harvest them again. And when he sets them free, they conflict with our laws of nature. So basically, they have the danger of making our universe completely unlivable in the extreme. And the cow porter is not a vehicle that is controlled by anybody. They have 5 quintarchs, of which Fabaut der Englanz is one of them. But they don't control the vehicle. They explore the chances that they come across while traveling. So it's all about chance. It's about traveling and finding things along the way, and then harvesting things, setting things free, basically causing chaos and seeing what will be the outcome of it. What can we get from it? And
some would say that is not necessarily an evil plan, but that is in fact how evolution works in a way.
It is. And that's something that we explore in this cycle as well. So we basically leave behind the idea of order is good and chaos is bad. But
Mhm.
we remain with the idea that both order and chaos can be extremely dangerous for living creatures like us, both of them. But the immediate threat is the chaotic threat from the cow porter. But the most grave danger is when chaos and order meet, because that could be a cataclysmic event. And the
Oh,
problem is
you're
that
talking
we
about
cannot.
my marriage. Okay, sorry, that's a cheap joke.
And basically, we cannot stay away from it, from this clash of order and chaos, because nobody can steer the chaos porter, even if he wanted to. It just does what it does.
Mhm.
And that's the main conflict that we have in there. Not even Farbaut can it. So he just explores the possibilities while riding along on the chaos porter.
And this is so amazing. And again, I mean, this is not unique to Perry Rhodan. We're talking about popular culture in general, which sometimes is more or at least equally interesting than any sociological study in terms of getting the temperature of where society is at any given point. I mean, when I'm reading this, obviously, the COVID era is reflected here and other things, but just sort of how do we um organize society with a principle of order? How do we accommodate the reality of chaos in a complex society? It is so current and it's so well done, just as much as the very original Perry Rhodan back in the 60s was thematically linked to the Cold War.
Let,
So
let, let,
again,
let me
yeah,
let,
go
let me
ahead.
give an example for the audience. I think I can do this quite quickly.
Hmm.
So there are whole worlds in this cow porter. Some of them are empty. So the cow porter, within this cycle, he would save the whole population of a planet that's doomed for destruction. So he would save all of them, billions of people. So that's a good thing, right?
Hmm.
But we never explore or we never learn as readers, not even as authors, this catastrophe that endangers this planet. Was it initiated by the forces of chaos? So
Hmm.
just to make them look good for saving all of these people? Or were they really just, have they been there by chance and then doing the right thing in this occasion? We never know. So you can judge for yourself as a reader. Do you want to see this as a devious plot? Or do you want to see this as an act of good for on the part of the chaos?
It is the sign of any good piece of art and even entertainment or commercial art that lets you think for yourself. And again, I'm so happy that I'm back on the crack on the
Right.
Perry Road on the Perry Road crack. And again, like you were pointing out, Robert, that is probably a lot of other people who are not in the Perry Rhodan fold are maybe pissed off because I'm not reading their books. But I read a lot. So, anyways, Farbaut Damglanz is going to read from a Susan Schwartz novel or novella called Kampf der Kastellanen, the Fight of the Castellan. And Susan, this introduces us, or this excerpt is about Reginald Bull again, who is invaded by an entity, which is kind of a person that is maybe just stardust, and that person says Zinde can read his mind. You want to tell us anything briefly about this excerpt? Because Reginald Bull is one of the good guys, but he has to resign his very high position in the political order because he has something that makes him he has something in his body. It's called a Zellaktivator. Oh God, we're getting into the weeds too much, and we only have 10 minutes left. Anyways, what do you want to tell us, Susan, about this excerpt?
Well, you said many of that already. um, we all love Reginald Bull because he's the good guy, like you said, and he's always there when he's needed. He is a guardian of the soul system, He's a guardian of all the galactic people. And somebody has changed within him. He has, there was Sternenruf. Wie kann man das?
The Star
Can,
Call.
The call from the stars.
Yes,
Oh yeah, the call
yes,
of the stars.
yes, a star call, der Sternenruf, the call
He
of
was
the
hearing
stars,
voices
maybe.
basically, and he didn't think
Yeah,
they met.
just one voice. And something is changing within him and his cell activator. The cell activator makes him immortal.
Yeah,
And
that's important. It makes him immortal. There is several immortal characters in the series, and his cell activator is influenced by the chaos powers somehow.
right. And this makes things different. So he has to resign. And he is now on the quest to himself and on the quest what's the meaning of this change, and maybe he would get evil. You don't know.
That's right. And this is a very short excerpt, but it shows you the quality of writing. Actually, Marlene von Hagen is here on the YouTube chat. I let me throw this one in here because I asked her. Marlene von Hagen, I think, only writes for Perry Roden Neo. I was asking her how long it takes her to write one of those, and she says, I don't know how many hours I need for it. I try to write the rough draft in a month. After I start with working it over, I have 6 to 8 weeks time for it. This is interesting. Is this before the notes? Fabio, I know you want to read. How many notes are coming in there? How many? Let's ask the Perry Roden Neo guys. Jonathan, how many notes do you give your people, your translators? Is this like tons of notes? Is like pages of revisions?
I don't have to do our translation check, so I'm so not the person to ask. I don't know, Phil. How do you wonder where the neighborhood? Do you wonder where the neighborhood cats went when you get edits back?
No. So we to talk about kind of the approach we take. So we have 2 translators so that we can get through the series a bit faster. So it's me and somebody else working in parallel. And we have an editor, Tess, who is in charge of giving us notes, giving us feedback, and also making sure that the different parts cohere. And she's very good. She's very up on her sci-fi. She really gets kind of the tone of the series.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how many notes she's giving to the other person who has kind of changed over the series. I feel like my notes tend to be quite light, but then I also try very hard to make the text read smoothly. I always do multiple passes before I submit it.
That's a whole nother thing with notes. I do get notes too, and as my function as a video producer. Okay, Fabio, let's read this from Fight of the Castellan. And this is by Susan Schwartz. This is 3,167. Can you believe this? Unbelievable. Okay, this is a short excerpt with Reginald Bull.
He's dead, but that's not the end. Reginald Bull paced back and forth in his guest quarters. 2 hours ago, he had returned from a meeting with Monkey to calm his troubled mind and ponder what to do next. Loneliness struck him with force. Celcinda's sigh still reverberated in his mind, renewed now as a slowly fading echo. The essence of chaos, the stardust, the chaotarchic agent, he was no more. On the planet Pathanide, far away from all galactic events, the showdown had come. As hoped, Celcinda had revealed information, including an overwhelming new insight. The Chaotarchs wanted to prevent the moral code from solidifying, whereas the Cosmocrats, who saw themselves as the guardians of that code, wanted precisely the opposite, the code's unchanged stability. And then the situation had escalated. Fortunately, Bull and his prisoner in the soul cage had stayed in the station on a lonely island at the planet's north pole, or the disaster would have been worse. Bull still felt guilty. Good Quintex had perished, including the Haluta Sao Pochon. Celcinda had jumped into his soul. After the Chaotarchic agent realized he had fallen into the next trap, he had taken terrible revenge. The Haluta had then sacrificed himself, while the entire station had exploded. Only a few insiders knew about the dramatic end of the experiment. The inhabitants of the planet, a society consisting solely of women, would keep the secret, since they were living in voluntary isolation and desiring no change. Bull hoped that he had not caused any cracks in the harmony of this unique culture. It was enough that he felt a crack within himself. He could not precisely define this new feeling, but it was, together with all the burden of the catastrophe, hardly bearable. What was that crack doing to him? What was becoming of him? You're a stranger in time and space, Celcinda had said. So it was not only because of the chaotarchic cell activator that Venerik wanted to get Bull into his clutches. There was still something else in him, something he had not guessed until that day after all these millennia. This secret Celcinda had not revealed, only hinted at. After another hour of restlessness and headaches, Bull called Monkey and asked for another conversation in private.
And that's from Susan Schwartz, The Fight of the Castellan. Very good reading, Fabot. You have a future ahead, but I said that earlier. A lot of people here on YouTube, they love your voice. Fabot is for hire. Audiobooks are also big. Audiobooks are also part of the Perry Rhodan offerings. And what I wanted to say, this is interesting because this shows the powers of good, the powers of order. The conflict here is about them being represented by the chaos people as, people who are stagnant, who don't move things forward. So there is a lot of wonderful stuff that's happening in that universe, in that conflict between chaos and order. Marlene von Hagen here has a conversation on YouTube with some folks who are asking her about the expose authors, that those are the ones that are putting the main arc together. And she says, I forgot what the question was, but she answers it. We have two persons who write the exposés. They're talking a lot about it. The authors use email and Slack for communication, but there are no physical meetings. This is a quick question to the Neo guys, but it's Robert and Susan, you can jump in as well. This is something that during COVID has, I mean, this is a complicated thing. But what I found with a lot of friends of mine, they had and they were privileged in their setup, but they had enormous problems working from home. Now, me having worked from home for a very long time and being self-employed as well, basically having to make my own schedule, to me, nothing really changed. And everybody in Second Life and my whole Second Life team, we work remotely anyway. So for us, in terms of work, absolutely nothing has changed. It was interesting to see the utter despair of people. And again, I don't want to minimize the issue. There are several issues. Of course, you have small living quarters. All of a sudden, everybody is stepping on each other's toes. There's not enough space. There may not be enough bandwidth and technology. But apart from that, a lot of people seem to have enormous issues working effectively with a remote team. And I feel the Perry Rhodan team and the Second Life team do the same very successfully they have been for a very long time. What's the secret? I mean, again, we're talking about a complex series. I mean, even in Hollywood, people sit together in a writer's room. You guys don't have a writer's room. What's the secret here to make this successful? A distributed workforce.
Discord.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just open and ongoing communication, right? I mean, I definitely feel like as a freelance translator and also as a project manager at J Novel Club, it's a nice position to be in for our work to not have been impacted by the pandemic. Obviously, it's something that affected everybody in different ways. I still kind of felt like at the time I just kind of recently become a freelancer and I was feeling very housebound because it was new to me. And I was very eager to kind of get out there and do things. And then obviously the universe said, no, stay in your room and only do your work. But yeah, I do feel like we were probably a bit ahead of the curve there in terms of just that being our normal daily life.
I don't want to minimize the issues of isolation and being, antsy in small living quarters and stuff like that. So I just want to make that clear, people who are listening to this. But it is interesting to me that a lot of people have told me personally they miss driving to work in the morning and literally sitting in a traffic jam, and I was like, what is wrong with you guys? Oh, I can't, I mean, again, this is very nuanced, but there seems to be something that it's to me, it's a lack of imagination of imagining that this is possible in a distributed workforce. I don't know. This is kind of very old school. Has to do also with management, I guess, looking at people physically, right? Are they playing bingo on the computer or are they doing their job? So this is a control issue as well. But yeah, don't want to get too much into it if nobody else has wants to comment. Maybe Susan
I
wants to
think
say, I want to be in an office and I hate this. And then Susan gets a call from the boss and says, you're fired. Robert, real quick. Oh, we're out of time. Oh my God, I want to be mindful. We can keep going if you guys are okay, but please tell me if you need to hit the sack or get going. We can do a little bit more. We can do another 10 minutes. It's so good.
well
Yes.
on the co-working part, I really think it, of course, it works. So in the end, writing is a solitary endeavor, right? Every writer has his
That's
hut
right.
and sits down. So from the outset, it's something that you do on your own. But working on a team like with Perry Roden, at least to me, it's really a big help if I have met the people I work with in person just once, maybe had a
Right.
drink with them, talk to them, know how they work in their minds, right? So to know a little bit about them, and then when that is established, it's much more easy to communicate via email or Slack or whatever there is.
Mm.
So that works then, but there has to be this personal contact first, to me at
An
least.
initial personal contact.
Right.
That's interesting. Yeah. I mean that makes total sense. Of course, this is where I always tell the story about my good friend Strawberry Singh from Linden Lab. The I don't know if she's the senior vice president of marketing now, but she and I have been working together for almost 15 years. We never met in the physical world, never. It's amazing, and we've been producing, I don't know, hundreds of videos over the last 15 years. I'm not saying that this should be the norm, but we're also having through avatar-based embodiment and sense of space a way to get to know each other. But anyways, enough about me. Farbot wants to read a quick excerpt of Robert's book. What book is he reading now, Farbot? What have you prepared? And this is wonderful. Here, Robert continues the Munaam. The Munuam, sorry, that Susan introduced. Robert picks up and kind of brilliantly, I should say, uh, in a very quick way, shows their mindset or their philosophy towards life. Was that fun, Robert?
Absolutely.
Robert is
That was
falling asleep.
no, that was
Oh,
absolutely fun. It was really some of the most fun writing that I ever did.
so you has there been a time, you don't have to name names, when somebody before you created an alien race and fleshed it out in a way where you thought this is completely antithetical to how it's situated in the whole series? Like, is a conflict like this? I mean, I can think of conflicts like this. Obviously, I mean, writers have it's not even ego related in that sense, but you just disagree with where this alien species is going.
I think that's something similar. If it's an alien species, it could also be a special character, especially a main character, that somehow doesn't, you don't connect to it. right?
Mhm.
So it doesn't ring bells and so on. But you have to understand that we have a lot of freedom writing these stories, even though there is an outline that makes sure that we get the story from point A to point B. And if there is something that I can't connect to, then I would push it to the back of the story. So to the background, or maybe I can even leave it out. I've done that. There were characters in the outline that I thought I can't connect to them, and I can't connect
Right.
the readers to them. And so I basically said, okay, leave it out and leave it to my colleagues for the next novel who can do better with them.
This is amazing. So you can you if you get it from point A to point B, parts of that stuff that you don't feel comfortable, you pass it on to someone else, and that person says, "Well, yeah, that's no problem. I'm going to
Yeah,
pick it up."
or
Hmm.
yes, or we trash it for good.
Hmm.
So so that's some of the irony in writing for Perry Roden. There are very, very detailed outlines,
Hmm.
but if you really stick to the outline, you are suspected to not have used your creativity. So
It's
they
kind of a
expect,
test. If
yeah,
that's
they
interesting.
they kind of expect you to ignore the outline to an extent,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And that's what I do.
Hmm. That is quite fascinating. I have so many more questions, especially also about sort of the technobabble. With I mean, I don't mean this in a derogatory way. And preparing this show, we had a lot of talk about like what's the hard sci-fi versus soft sci-fi. I don't even know if the term soft sci-fi exists per se, but people have different preferences, and I wonder how you guys deal with like very extended sort of techno stuff, weapons, descriptions of weapons, and stuff that does not yet exist in the physical realm. Let's have Fabo a quick read. This is only a 2-minute excerpt, and then maybe the we'll wrap it up with the Neo folks, how they deal with that and what's coming up in the future. Farbout is reading from The End of the Doubters. Ooh,
Right?
here we go.
Chaos. Chaos is origin and it is destination of everything. Where the world is smallest, deepest, and truest, energy states fluctuate in unpredictable ways. Quanta arise, join, and separate, pass away free of any law. Protsorod considers it impertinent impudence that an order is laid over it like sticky slime. The fact that conscious life exists, which formalizes this order in laws of nature, is an insult. Protsorod's own existence is an unforgivable slight. He takes revenge for that. Protsorod could turn his violence against himself, kill himself, dissolve his own existence. That would be logical. But revenge would be missing. Besides, Protsorod hates logic. Protsorod hangs on 10 shoulder strings from a grid inside the Vnatat, which serves as the flagship for the Munuam contingent on this deployment. 10 shoulder strings, not 9, one more than Munuam usually have, as if nature wanted to mock him by giving him an extra fuse with which to hold on all the more tightly to this despicable life. But he doesn't do the universe this favor. He seeks danger, and his team emulates him. Above all the pack leaders. They fear being useless ballast on this mission, mere passengers on the tricubes with guns large enough to do all the work. Protsorod understands their lust for murder. He feels pity for them. He takes them to where death tears apart security and returns the world to chaos, as it should be.
This is so good, Robert, and yeah, the Munuam with their view on life and life and death and the big questions is really fascinating. Very so this was it Protsorod who had I guess a soul searching moment, or was it
Right?
somebody? Very good. I mean, that was one of the best stories in the cycle so far. Actually, the best one is the Genetic Algorithm by Oliver Fröhlich, but he didn't want to come on the show because um, God, that was supposed to be a joke. It's not true. I never contacted Oliver. He's a great writer. All the writers are great. Now, we need to wrap it up. Jay and Philip, and I hope you guys come back because Philip was just saying what I was thinking. Such a huge topic of the collaboration and the logistics, and I have a whole page here where I wanted to ask about, how to avoid tropes and just sort of also maybe a little bit writing nuts and bolts advice. Female writers, is there enough equity there in the staff? Susan, you could type up that answer if you want, or you have to come back, please. Jonathan, are you confident that, or does it matter? Well, I want to see everything in physical presentation, physical offerings. That's me. I live in the virtual world. I work in the virtual world, but I want my books to be on paper. Jay
So do
Collis,
I.
Susan, you do as well.
Yeah.
I want to ask this one to Jay because these guys are only in ebook format. And by the way, on the table here, we have a bunch of ebooks here, by the way, with also cool covers. And here's the Perry Road Neo, but we've seen it before. We also have the Alaska Settler mask, which was made by Ruby, here on the table. But Jay, does it matter to you that you guys are only in ebook format? Would you like to have it in physical format? Does it matter today from an economic standpoint? I know it's an economic question to produce these things, but yeah, is that something that you are working towards that matters, that even matters at all?
I mean, that's less an economic question and more an NDA question. um,
Oh, okay.
so our company has always been digital focused, digital first. For those who don't know, the way J Novel Club works is our books premiere week to week on the website for subscribers. So you pay your $5 a month and you can read all the books basically split out across about 8 weeks as they're being translated. And then the book is done and it comes out in ebook. We really target our print releases to collectors. They tend to be the top sellers, the really fancy things. So would it be nice to do more? Sure. But that's kind of not who we are. We very much are looking for that kind of audience that is into casual reading, who do fall in love with the series, but the reading is the focus to a certain extent more than the collecting is.
Right.
Would it be nice? Sure. Is it something we have to have? No. Is it impossible? I can't say. Sorry.
So, but the way you this, I understand that it's so because you mentioned it, I wasn't familiar when you were emailing me. Oh, we're streaming number 10. So explain that again. I think it's a fascinating concept. I mean, again, for me, I need to have this stuff in the physical space, like a crazy stamp collecting dude, where the whole room smells like this old paper. But you guys do this. What does streaming mean in the context
So-
of this stuff?
So, like I was saying, if you're a subscriber to our website, we post the books in parts as they're being translated. We call it pre-pub. So it might not have the final polish on it. There might still be some typos in there. There might be a glitch somewhere in the image. People can report it on the forums, whatever, before it goes to QA. But if you have to have that newest part as soon as possible, you've got to know what happens next. You can get the book week to week in chunks. They're about 30 pages a chunk. And that's what you get for your $5 a month. And then when the book comes out in ebook, you get about 2 more weeks and then it expires. So if you missed out, you've got to go buy the ebook. But if you're caught up and you've got to have it, it's a really good way to, stay hooked. And we publish something like 35 to 40 series at any given time this way. So there's always something to read. There's usually more to read on the website than people have time to read.
You're doing what every good drug dealer does. I commend you. This is a pretty good model. You're keeping them hooked, and then you get a little goodie at the end if you want it. Awesome. I gotta wrap it now. This was absolutely fantastic panel, folks. This is was really, really wonderful for me as a fan, and I really do hope that the audience, we have a completely full house today, that the audience here in Second Life and on YouTube is has gotten a little glimpse and this little appetizer, and we demystified some of this stuff, and people may be hungry to go and sign up for a German course so they can actually read it. No, as we established, you don't have to learn German. You could get Perry Roden Neo in English, or you run it through DeepL or whatever you do. Perry Roden is awesome. Thank you, Susan Schwartz. Thank you, Robert Corvus. Thank you, Philip Rubin, and thank you, Jay Collis. Magnificent. I'm going to run through the credits here real quick. Also, a big shout out to Kitten Duo on YouTube. Kitten Duo is supporting us with monetarily, which is wonderful. So thank you. Needless to say, this place that we're in here in Second Life right now, maybe the camera can go around a little bit again. This place will be here, will remain here. This is a gigantic building. We're in one room. The other rooms are empty. We did not have time to furnish the other rooms, but we have plans. You can walk around here. In the building, you can teleport to the other islands. So this will be the Perry Roden hub. Maybe other people want to do a fan meeting or whatever. So just let me know, and you can have access to the place. The other three places that I walked in through in the intro, they're also available. You can go to the teleporter and look around. Again, this is a persistent place. We're not going to dismantle it. Linden Lab, sponsors of this very program, they gave us this island. Now we have 4 islands. Now we need a 5th one. Also, there are tons of art around. We didn't even get to the blueprints. We didn't talk about the so-called Risszeichnungen. I have a whole bunch of them. I'm going to put them out in the gallery. They're absolutely fascinating. Maybe somebody in the backstage team can put up a link to the Risszeichnungen. There's a Risszeichnung website that we have in our document. And what else was I going to say before I run through the credits? Risszeichnung, Leserkontaktseite, all this really cool stuff. And also the American version of the Ace books. I know Stranger Nightfire here in the audience was familiar with them, and Flinza Jürgens as well. So there are pictures around there as well. You can get them on eBay for $50 a pop. The Second Life Book Club is happening every Wednesday, 12 o'clock Pacific time, SLT, Second Life time. slbookclub@dragster.com is the email for the program. The program is produced by Isabel Scherenscheiler, the Super Gecko, and myself. And the location manager and master builder, please, huge round applause for Ruby. Ruby put together this world. This was much more work than we usually do. I mean, we do a lot of work, but for this show, we went all out, and Ruby worked on this really, really hard with my notes. I was the expose manager, and then Ruby executed it. And there was a lot of freedom, but there was also stringent control. The avatars are made by Ruby and Bespoke Caravan. The research is by Shyla, the Super Gecko. Now, we have 2 ads today. This is a new thing. So we have 2 main sponsors. One of the main sponsors is, in fact, Bespoke Caravan. Bespoke make fantasy avatars, and they made, or the basis is all today's guests, except for Jay Collis, who wanted a Stingray, and he's magnificent, but he was not made by our sponsor, Bespoke Caravan. So thank you, Bespoke, for sponsoring us, meaning the sponsorship can be product, the sponsorship can be Linden dollars. And the other sponsor today was the Black Forest. And I'm trying to find my slide of Arduin sent me that slide. The Black Forest is, of course, Arden Schwartzman's venture, which is making all sorts of things. But Arden told me he wants to kind of hype his board games right now. So he makes gadgets, games, vehicles, and more, but he also makes amazing low land impact, high detailed board games. Not only chess and Scrabbles and knockoffs of all sorts of games where we can't mention the name or we're going to get sued, but he also designs his own games. Berserker is one of my favorite games, and these can be played in real time in Second Life, and they're very detailed. The game mechanics are amazing. So more power to Arden for it with his board games in the Black Forest. Next week we have no guests. We have one of the free for alls, and the free for all means that anything goes. If you want to read something, if you have a work in progress and you want to go up on stage and read a little bit, please message me, and you can come in and read your work in progress. We talk about all sorts of things book related. We might have a special guest, but if we do, he's going or she's going to be unannounced. Might be somebody famous, might not be. We have a couple of weeks free for alls, and then we have amazing, stellar guests coming up. I got to wrap it up, folks. December 15th, I believe, is Perry Rhodan 3200. That's where people should get into the new cycle, right? You mark
Right?
that down, Robert. And with Perry Rhodan Neo, you can get in right now. The crack is right there, jnovelclub.com, and it's waiting for you.
And in
Ooh.
Germany, you can jump into the new Neo cycle with a novel written by Marlene von Hagen, who joined us
Oh,
in the
that's
chat,
right. That's
right?
right. We forgot to say that the German Neocyclist also 10 books, right? 10 pocket books constitute one sort of story arc. And the new one is out right now by Marlene von Hagen. Yeah, correct. Thank you guys. And now we're going to go to post roll with a little surprise song. Stay on YouTube. If you know what that song is, I don't know. I'll give you something. You win something. Maybe I'll send you a Perry Rhodan. Thank you and good night. And do tip. I forgot to mention tip. Where's the tip jar? I don't know where's the tip jar. The tip jar's got to be somewhere. Throw Linda Knowles in that tip jar. Thank you very much and good night, everybody.
Night.
Good night.